The phone trembled in my hand as I stared at the quarterly reports spread across my desk. My heart pounded against my ribcage, each beat hammering out a rhythm of disbelief. "I'm sorry. Could you repeat that?" I whispered, my voice barely audible even to myself. "Ms. Blake, this is Hazel from HR." The voice on the other end responded, gentle but firm. "I'm calling to inform you that your assistant, Eliza, was involved in a fatal car accident early this morning. The police contacted us about an hour ago." My eyes drifted instinctively to the glass wall separating my office from the main floor. Through it, I could see Eliza sitting at her desk, typing away with her characteristic focus, her chestnut hair pulled back in a neat bun, the same bun she wore every day. The same cream-colored blouse she'd complimented me on when I wore it last month. "That's impossible," I said, rising from my chair. "I'm looking at her right now." Silence stretched across the line, taut and heavy. "Ms. Blake, I assure you, we received official notification. Perhaps you're mistaken." "No mistake." I cut her off, moving toward my office door. "Eliza is sitting at her desk, working. I can see her from my office." "Stay where you are," Hazel said, her voice suddenly sharp. "We're coming up." I hung up and stood frozen in the doorway of my office, watching Eliza, or whoever she was, continue working as if nothing was wrong, as if she hadn't supposedly died hours ago. She must have felt my gaze because she looked up, offering that same pleasant smile she always did, her head tilting slightly to the right. "Do you need something, Miss Blake?" she asked, her voice carrying across the floor. Before I could answer, the elevator doors opened. Hazel from HR stepped out, flanked by 2 security guards. Behind them stood our CEO, Warren, his face grave. Heads turned throughout the open office as they marched directly toward Eliza's desk. I moved toward them, my legs unsteady. "Ms. Blake, please stay back," Hazel said, holding up a hand. Eliza stood, confusion crossing her features. "What's happening?" Warren stepped forward. "Security, please detain this individual." "On what grounds?" Eliza demanded, backing away from her desk. "Ms. Blake, what's going on?" Hazel held up a paper. "We have received official notification of Eliza Turner's death this morning in a vehicle collision at 5:43 a.m. We also have her death certificate, rushed through by authorities due to the suspicious circumstances." The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet as 30 pairs of bewildered eyes darted between Eliza, the security team, and me. "This is absurd," Eliza protested as security approached. "Check my ID. Call my emergency contacts. This is clearly a mistake." Hazel turned to me, her expression softening with concern. "Ms. Blake, do you remember the personal question you established when Eliza was hired? The security verification?" My mouth went dry. 3 years ago, when Eliza joined my team, we'd created a verification question only she and I knew, a safeguard for sensitive communications. "Eliza," I said, my voice strained, "what was the name of my first pet?" She smiled, relief washing over her face. "That's easy. It was your calico cat, Buttons." The office fell silent. Warren's expression hardened. "My first pet was a turtle named Shelley," I whispered. In that moment, Eliza's face changed. Not dramatically, just a subtle shift in her eyes, a tightening around her mouth. She'd never looked more familiar. Yet suddenly, I'd never seen her before in my life. Security moved in, taking her by the arms. As they escorted her toward the elevator, she turned, catching my gaze one last time. "You never even noticed," she said, her voice carrying across the stunned silence. 3 years working side by side, and you couldn't tell the difference. The elevator doors closed, taking with them the woman I thought I knew. And that's when I realized I had no idea who I'd been working with all this time, or what she wanted from me. If you're as shocked as I was in that moment, make sure to hit like and subscribe to hear the full story of deception that nearly destroyed my life, and the revenge that brought justice no one saw coming. My name is Audrey Blake, and until that morning, I believed I was good at reading people. I'd built my career on it, rising from financial analyst to division director in just 8 years, the youngest woman to hold the position in our company's history. I prided myself on my intuition, my ability to spot talent and nurture it. That's why I'd personally selected Eliza from a pool of 73 applicants 3 years ago. She had seemed perfect, intelligent but not threatening, competent but appropriately deferential, with just enough personality to be likable but not so much that she'd cause disruptions. For 3 years, she had been the ideal assistant. Always early, always prepared. She remembered birthdays, anticipated needs, and made everyone feel valued. Our department's efficiency had improved dramatically under her organizational skills. I'd even been planning to recommend her for a promotion, and apparently, she was a complete stranger. The hours following her removal from the building passed in a blur. Police arrived, statements were taken. Warren called an emergency meeting of the executive team. Security footage was pulled. Forensic IT specialists descended upon Eliza's computer. The real Eliza Turner has been on medical leave for the past 3 years, Detective Powell explained, laying photographs on the conference table. She's been receiving specialized treatment in Switzerland for a rare immune disorder. I stared at the photos of a woman who looked similar to my assistant, but clearly wasn't the same person. Same hair color, similar build, but different bone structure, different eyes. Who was sitting at that desk then? Warren demanded. We believe her name is Cassidy. The detective replied. We're still working to confirm her full identity, but preliminary analysis suggests she's related to someone high in your organization. My stomach twisted as I thought about all the confidential information Eliza had access to: financial projections, personnel files, strategic plans, 3 years' worth of company secrets in the hands of an imposter. How did no one catch this? I asked, my voice hollow. How did I not see it? She was very good, Detective Powell said, and she had help from inside. Someone altered records, created false credentials, and maintained the deception. This wasn't a solo operation. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my kitchen until dawn, reviewing every interaction, every conversation with the woman I'd known as Eliza. Had there been signs, clues I missed? How could someone maintain such a perfect impersonation for 3 years without slipping? More disturbing was the realization that someone had targeted me specifically. The real Eliza had been hired to be my assistant, then conveniently developed a condition requiring overseas treatment almost immediately. The timing was too perfect to be coincidence. When I returned to work the next day, my office had been sealed with police tape. A temporary workspace had been set up for me in a conference room. Security guards now patrolled our floor. Employees whispered as I passed, their expressions a mixture of pity and suspicion. Warren called me into his office mid-morning. The board is concerned, he said without preamble. Having an imposter at the heart of our financial division for 3 years represents a catastrophic security breach. I understand, I said, keeping my voice steady despite the anxiety churning inside me. I take full responsibility. That's commendable, but responsibility doesn't mitigate damage. Warren's fingers drummed against his desk. We need to assess the extent of the breach. What did she have access to through you? The implication was clear. This was my fault. I'd been duped, compromised, made vulnerable. The career I'd built with painstaking care now balanced on a knife's edge. Everything is being reviewed, I assured him. I've provided IT with a complete list of projects Eliza assisted with. Good. Warren nodded, then hesitated. Audrey, I need to ask, is there anything in your personal life that might have made you a target? Any connections that could explain why someone would go to such lengths to place an imposter beside you? The question caught me off guard. No, nothing. Think carefully. Rivals? Enemies? Former relationships gone sour? I shook my head. I've always been focused on my career. I don't have time for many personal entanglements. Warren studied me for a long moment. The police believe this was a targeted operation. You were chosen for a reason. As I left Warren's office, I felt eyes following me. Colleagues who once sought my advice now averted their gaze. The whispers grew louder, less concealed. By the end of the week, things got worse. Discrepancies began appearing in financial reports I'd signed off on months ago. Numbers that didn't add up. Projections that had been subtly altered. Client communications that had been intercepted and changed before reaching their destination. Someone had been systematically undermining my work, creating tiny errors that accumulated over time. making me appear increasingly incompetent. These inconsistencies go back at least 2 years. The forensic accountant told me, spreading the evidence across my temporary desk. Small enough to miss individually, but collectively, they paint a concerning picture. I checked those reports, I insisted. Eliza, Cassidy, whatever her name is, she must have altered them after I reviewed them. The accountant's expression remained neutral. Possibly, but you signed off on all of them. My credibility was crumbling. Projects I'd led were now under scrutiny. Decisions I'd made were being reevaluated. Team members who had once respected me now questioned my judgment. Then came the bombshell that shattered what remained of my professional reputation. We've discovered unauthorized access to the pension fund management system, Warren announced during an emergency board meeting. Someone has been making minute adjustments to allocation formulas over the past 18 months. The cumulative effect appears to have diverted approximately $12 million. All eyes turned to me. As division director, the pension system fell under my ultimate oversight. All access was logged under your credentials, Audrey, Warren continued, his tone carefully neutral. Or your assistants, operating with your authorization. I never authorized, I began, but the board chair cut me off. The audit trail is clear, Miss Blake. Either you were complicit or catastrophically negligent in your oversight duties. I was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Security escorted me from the building, past the wide eyes and whispered comments of my colleagues. 3 security guards walked me out, as if I might steal something or destroy evidence if left unattended. The humiliation burned through me as I walked to my car, carrying a box with my personal items. 8 years of dedication, of working longer hours than anyone else, of sacrificing my personal life for my career, all erased in a week. That night, sitting alone in my apartment, I received a text from an unknown number. You should have paid more attention. I stared at my phone, ice forming in my chest. Was it her? Cassidy? The woman who had pretended to be Eliza for 3 years? I wanted to respond, to demand answers, but something stopped me. This was exactly what she wanted, to provoke me, to make me react emotionally rather than think clearly. Instead, I placed my phone down and began to methodically review everything I knew. Someone had orchestrated an elaborate scheme targeting me specifically. They had placed an imposter at my side for 3 years. They had systematically undermined my work while simultaneously embezzling company funds. And now they were taunting me. Why? What had I done to deserve this? What could possibly justify such an elaborate revenge plot? As I sorted through possibilities, a notification appeared on my laptop, an email from an address I didn't recognize, with only a subject line, "The real Eliza Turner is back in the country, and she remembers everything." My heart raced as I stared at the cryptic message. Eliza Turner, the real Eliza, was back. After 3 years of supposed medical treatment abroad, she had returned, and according to this anonymous message, she remembered everything. But what was everything? What did she know that I didn't? I needed answers, but I couldn't trust this message. It could be another trap from whoever had orchestrated this elaborate scheme against me. I took a deep breath and tried to think like the strategic professional I prided myself on being, not the emotional wreck I was becoming. First, I needed to verify if Eliza Turner had actually returned. I couldn't approach the company. I was on administrative leave and under investigation. But I did have other resources. I called Paige, a former colleague who now worked at a competing firm. We'd maintained a cautious friendship despite the professional divide. "Audrey, is everything okay?" I heard rumors. "Nothing's okay," I admitted. "But I need help with something discreet." Paige hesitated. "This isn't about corporate espionage, is it? Because I can't." "No, it's personal. I need to locate someone who recently returned to the country. Eliza Turner, the real one." The line went quiet for a moment. "The assistant who wasn't your assistant?" Paige finally asked. "The one who supposedly died but didn't, while someone else pretended to be her?" "That's the simplified version, yes. Give me a day," Paige said. True to her word, Paige called the next evening with an address. Eliza Turner was staying at her cousin's apartment on the east side of the city. I drove there immediately, rehearsing what I would say. How do you introduce yourself to someone whose identity was stolen to sabotage your career? What questions do you ask first? The cousin's apartment was in a modest building with no doorman. I pressed the buzzer for Unit 3B and waited, my pulse thudding in my ears. Hello? A tentative female voice answered. I'm looking for Eliza Turner, I said. My name is Audrey Blake. Silence stretched for several seconds. I've been expecting you, the voice finally replied. The door buzzed open. The woman who greeted me at apartment 3B looked like a paler, thinner version of the photos Detective Powell had shown me. Same honey brown hair, though hers was cut in a short bob rather than the longer style her imposter had worn. Same green eyes, though hers were shadowed with exhaustion. She leaned against the doorframe, studying me with unmistakable recognition. You look exactly like your photos, she said, her voice soft but steady. You've seen photos of me? I've studied everything about you for the past month. She stepped back, inviting me in. I needed to understand why someone would steal my life to get close to you. The apartment was sparsely furnished, dominated by medical equipment in one corner, an oxygen tank, monitors, medication organizers. My treatment continues, Eliza explained, noticing my gaze. The Swiss clinic helped, but I'm not fully recovered. She gestured for me to sit on a worn sofa while she lowered herself carefully into an armchair. You sent me that email, I said. It wasn't a question. Eliza nodded. I thought you deserved a warning. Things are about to get complicated. They're already complicated. I've lost my job, my reputation, and apparently $12 million from the company pension fund. A flash of surprise crossed her face. 12 million? It's worse than I thought. What do you know about all this? I leaned forward. Why would someone steal your identity to become my assistant? I wish I knew the full story. Eliza sighed. What I do know is that my medical condition was no accident. My blood went cold. What do you mean? 3 years ago, shortly after I was hired to be your assistant, I began experiencing symptoms: extreme fatigue, muscle weakness, neurological issues. Doctors were baffled. Tests came back inconclusive or contradictory. She paused, taking a careful sip from a water bottle beside her. It wasn't until I reached Switzerland that a specialist recognized the pattern. I'd been poisoned, deliberately, systematically, with a compound that mimicked an autoimmune disorder. The room seemed to tilt. Poisoned? By whom? I don't know for certain, but I have suspicions. Eliza's gaze hardened. Someone wanted me out of the way, but not dead. They needed my identity, my position beside you. And they were willing to make me deathly ill to get it. My mind raced, trying to process this new information. But why? What's so special about being my assistant? That's what I've been trying to figure out since I learned someone had been living as me. Eliza leaned forward despite her obvious discomfort. Tell me about her. The woman who took my place. What was she like? I described Cassidy in detail, her mannerisms, her work habits, her interactions with me and others in the office. Eliza listened intently, occasionally nodding. She studied me, probably for months before making her move. And she had help from inside the company, someone who could alter records, create false credentials. The police mentioned she might be related to someone in upper management, I offered. That narrows it down, at least. Eliza reached for a notebook on the side table. I've been mapping possible connections. There are 17 executives at the director level or above. Of those, only 4 have daughters in the right age range. I stared at her in surprise. You've been investigating this on your own? What would you do if someone stole 3 years of your life? Eliza countered. I want answers. And justice. Her determination struck a chord. Here was someone who understood exactly how it felt to have your identity, your very existence, hijacked by forces beyond your control. I think we should work together, I said impulsively. Pool our information. Eliza studied me for a long moment. That could be dangerous. Whoever is behind this has already poisoned me and framed you for embezzlement. They won't hesitate to eliminate both of us if we become a threat. I'm already a threat, I pointed out, and I have nothing left to lose. A ghost of a smile touched Eliza's lips. Then let's compare notes. We spent hours piecing together what we knew. Eliza shared medical reports confirming her poisoning. I detailed the financial discrepancies discovered at the company, the tampering with reports and communications. It's like they were systematically undermining your position while simultaneously using it as cover for theft, Eliza observed. The question is, why you specifically? I had been asking myself the same question for days. I've been reviewing every major decision I've made, every project I've led, looking for something that might have made me a target. Maybe it's not what you did, Eliza suggested. Maybe it's what you were going to do. What projects were you working on before all this happened? I thought back to the weeks before the imposter was discovered. The quarterly review, obviously. And I was leading the audit of our acquisition of Novatech last year. Eliza perked up. Tell me about that acquisition. Standard procedure. We acquired a smaller tech firm with promising patents. I was verifying that all assets were properly valued and integrated. Who handled the original acquisition deal? Warren and the M. A team, primarily. My division came in after for financial integration. Eliza made a note. And when did this audit begin? About a month ago. I paused as realization dawned. Right before Eliza was exposed. That timing can't be coincidental. Eliza tapped her pen against the notebook. What else changed a month ago? I thought carefully. The board appointed a new member, Gina Wright. She came from the banking sector. Any connection to Novatech? Not that I know of, but I can check. As night deepened into early morning, we developed a theory. Someone had used the Novatech acquisition to launder money or hide financial irregularities. My audit threatened to expose this, triggering their plan to discredit me before I could discover whatever they were hiding. But that doesn't explain why they targeted you 3 years ago, I pointed out. The acquisition only happened last year. Maybe this was a long-term plan, Eliza suggested. Or maybe the reason changed over time. We agreed to divide our investigation. I would look into the Novatech acquisition and the new board member, while Eliza would research the 4 executives with daughters who might be Cassidy. As I prepared to leave, Eliza gripped my arm with surprising strength. Be careful, Audrey. Don't trust anyone at the company, not even people you consider friends. Her warning followed me home like a shadow. The next day, I began digging into Novatech's background. Without access to company systems, I had to rely on public records and industry contacts. What I discovered sent chills down my spine. Novatech had been on the verge of bankruptcy before our acquisition. Their promising patents were tied up in litigation with competing claims. Yet, we had paid premium price for them. More concerning was what I found about Gina Wright, our newest board member. Before banking, she had briefly served as a financial consultant to several tech firms, including the one challenging Novatech's patents. I called Eliza immediately. I think I found the connection, I said without preamble. Gina Wright has ties to Novatech's competitors. And there's more. Her daughter graduated from Westridge University 5 years ago. Business administration with a minor in theater. Theater, Eliza repeated. Useful training for an imposter. What's her name? Cassandra Wright. Eliza's sharp intake of breath confirmed what we both suspected. Cassidy, I need to get back into the company, I said. Check personnel files, confirm if there are photos. No, Eliza cut me off. That's exactly what they'll expect. We need to be smarter than that. She was right. Rushing in would only alert Gina and Cassandra that we were onto them. We needed proof that would stand up to scrutiny, evidence that couldn't be dismissed or destroyed. I might have another way, Eliza said after a thoughtful pause. My cousin works at a medical clinic downtown. The same one, where someone using my identity was spotted. That's how this whole thing started to unravel. They might have security footage, intake forms with signatures. It was a promising lead. If we could prove Cassandra had impersonated Eliza at the clinic, it would establish a pattern of identity theft separate from the workplace allegations. As Eliza pursued that angle, I focused on the financial aspects. Without company access, I turned to Dennis, a former auditor I'd worked with years ago who now ran his own firm. I need a hypothetical analysis, I told him over coffee at a quiet cafe far from the financial district. How would someone use a corporate acquisition to hide embezzlement? Dennis raised an eyebrow but didn't ask why. I wanted to know. Multiple ways. Create shell companies that appear to be part of the acquired business. Overvalue assets. Pay consultants who don't exist. The list goes on. And if $12 million disappeared from a pension fund around the same time? He whistled low. That's not hypothetical, is it? You're in trouble, Audrey. Not of my making, I assured him. Can you help me understand how these pieces might connect? Dennis hesitated, then nodded. Send me what you have. I'll look for patterns. But be careful. Pension fraud attracts federal attention. Whoever did this won't want you asking questions. His warning proved prophetic. That evening, I returned home to find my apartment door slightly ajar. Heart pounding, I backed away and called the police from my car. Officers found my place thoroughly searched. Laptop gone, files scattered. The message was clear. Someone knew I was investigating and wanted to stop me. I spent the night at a hotel under a false name, jumping at every sound. The next morning, Eliza called with news. The clinic has footage, she said, her voice tight with excitement. Cassandra Wright visited 3 times using my ID. And I found something else. She made appointments at the same times as Gina, who was there for wellness consultations. They were using the clinic to meet privately. That connects them, at least, I said. But we still don't have proof of financial wrongdoing. Actually, we might. Eliza paused. My cousin overheard something. Gina left her phone on during an examination last week. She was arguing with someone about offshore transfers and covering tracks. The doctor noted it because it seemed suspicious. It wasn't conclusive, but it added to our growing pile of circumstantial evidence. We needed something definitive, something that would force authorities to take action. That afternoon, Dennis called with a breakthrough. I analyzed public disclosures about the Novatech acquisition, he said without greeting. There's a pattern of funds moving through 3 holding companies before ending up at a private equity firm in the Caymans. Guess who sits on that firm's advisory board? Gina Wright, I guessed. Bingo. And the transfers align perfectly with withdrawals from your company's pension system. My hands shook as I took notes. Is it enough to take to authorities? Not yet, Dennis cautioned. These are connections I can see because I know what to look for. We need internal documents showing who authorized the transfers. Documents I couldn't access while on administrative leave. Unless… Eliza, I said when I called her next. How good are you with computers? Decent, she replied cautiously. Why? Because I think I know how to get the proof we need, but it will mean walking straight into the lion's den. The plan was dangerous, possibly illegal, and our only chance at clearing both our names. Eliza would use her legitimate credentials, which had never been officially revoked during her medical leave, to access the company systems. Meanwhile, I would create a distraction by publicly demanding a meeting with the board to clear my name. They'll be watching you, not the system logs, Eliza reasoned. And I know exactly which files to look for now. We set the plan for Monday morning, when the executive floor would be busy with weekly meetings. Eliza would arrive early, using her old access badge. I would arrive precisely at 10 a.m. when the board gathered. Sunday night, I barely slept. Every possible disaster scenario played through my mind. What if Eliza was caught? What if her credentials had been deleted? What if our suspicions about Gina and Cassandra were wrong? By dawn, I was exhausted but resolute. This was our only chance to reclaim our lives. I dressed carefully in my most authoritative suit, applied makeup to hide the dark circles under my eyes, and drove to the company headquarters. As I approached the towering glass building that had once represented my greatest achievement, dread pooled in my stomach. My phone buzzed with a text from Eliza. In position. Systems accessed. You have 30 minutes. I took a deep breath and walked through the front doors, head high, as if I still belonged there. Ms. Blake? The security guard looked startled. You're not authorized. I'm here to see the board, I announced loudly, drawing attention from employees crossing the lobby. I have evidence of financial fraud involving a board member, and I intend to present it immediately. The guard reached for his phone, exactly as I'd hoped. Within minutes, Warren himself appeared in the lobby, his face a mask of controlled anger. Audrey, this is inappropriate, he said in a low voice. You're under investigation. You can't just, I have proof I was framed, I interrupted, projecting my voice so nearby employees could hear. And I know who's behind the pension fund theft. Warren's eyes darted around the crowded lobby. My office. Now. Perfect. As he escorted me to the executive floor, I checked my watch. 20 minutes left for Eliza to find what we needed. Warren ushered me into his office, closing the door firmly. "What game are you playing, Audrey? This spectacle won't help your case." "It's not a game." I sat down uninvited. "I know about Gina Wright's connection to the Novatech acquisition. I know about her daughter Cassandra impersonating my assistant. And I know about the money moving through holding companies to a Cayman Islands account connected to Gina." Warren's face paled. "Those are serious allegations, with serious evidence to back them up." I bluffed. "Evidence I'm prepared to take to the authorities if the board doesn't hear me out." He studied me for a long moment, then reached for his phone. "Wait here." As Warren stepped out to presumably gather the board members, my phone vibrated with another text from Eliza. "Got everything. Meeting you at exit B in 5 minutes. Hurry." The urgency in her message sent adrenaline surging through me. Something had gone wrong. I slipped out of Warren's office while he was down the hall. Instead of taking the main elevator, I headed for the service stairs, racing down toward exit B on the building's north side. I burst through the door to find Eliza waiting, her face pale with fear. "We need to go," she said, gripping a small external drive. "Someone's been tracking my access. They know we're here." As we hurried toward my car, Eliza explained what she'd found. Transfer authorizations, backdated approvals, falsified audit reports, all under your electronic signature. But the metadata shows they were created from Gina's private office network, not your computer. "That's proof I was framed," I said, hope rising for the first time in weeks. "Yes, but there's more." Eliza's voice dropped. "Cassandra wasn't just impersonating me to watch you. She was gathering information about everyone in senior management. Gina's been blackmailing half the executive team to cover up her financial schemes." The pieces suddenly clicked into place. That's why no one questioned the discrepancies in my reports. They were all compromised. As we reached my car, a security vehicle pulled into the parking lot, heading straight for us. "Get in," I ordered, jamming the key into the ignition. "We need to get this evidence somewhere safe." But as we pulled away from the building, I noticed a black sedan fall into place behind us. Then another appeared at the next intersection. "We're being followed," Eliza said, clutching the drive containing our evidence. "I know," I replied, making a sharp turn to test my suspicion. The sedans followed, and I think I know exactly where we need to go. I pressed the accelerator, heading not toward the police station as Eliza might have expected, but toward the one place our pursuers wouldn't anticipate, the heart of the financial district, where the regional FBI office maintained a white-collar crime division. Sometimes, the only way to escape a trap is to spring it yourself. The sedans stayed close as I navigated through downtown traffic, making sudden turns and lane changes in attempts to shake them. Eliza gripped the door handle, her knuckles white as I swerved around a delivery truck. "They're not backing off," she said, checking the side mirror. "There are at least 3 vehicles now." I gritted my teeth. "We're 6 blocks from the FBI field office. We just need to stay ahead until then." The light ahead turned yellow. I accelerated through the intersection just as it changed to red, watching with satisfaction as one sedan got caught behind crossing traffic, but 2 others ran the light, horns blaring around them as they continued their pursuit. "Audrey," Eliza's voice tightened with fear. "The drive. We need to protect it. If they catch us, use my phone," I instructed, keeping my eyes on the road. "Take photos of the key documents and email them to yourself, Dennis, and Paige. Create multiple copies they can't all destroy." As Eliza frantically photographed the evidence, I spotted a new threat in my rearview mirror. A motorcycle weaving through traffic, gaining on us rapidly. "We've got another problem," I warned. Eliza looked up from the phone. "How many people does Gina have on her payroll?" "Too many," I muttered, making a hard right turn. The motorcycle followed easily, now just 3 car lengths behind. I could see the rider's black helmet, the tinted visor revealing nothing of their face. 4 blocks to go. Traffic was thickening as we approached the heart of the financial district. The motorcycle pulled alongside us. The rider reached inside their jacket. "Get down," I shouted, yanking the wheel sharply left. Our car sideswiped the motorcycle, sending it skidding. Not a gun, I realized with relief as the rider tumbled. They'd been reaching for our door handle, trying to wrench it open at speed. Almost there, I said, spotting the federal building ahead. Did you send the files? Just finished, Eliza confirmed, her breathing ragged. What's the plan when we arrive? We go straight to white-collar crimes, ask for whoever's in charge, and don't leave until they've seen everything. The pursuing sedans had reorganized, now flanking us on both sides. One accelerated, cutting in front of us suddenly. I slammed on the brakes to avoid a collision. The car behind us struck our bumper, jolting us forward. We were boxed in. No, I whispered, watching suited men emerge from the sedans. We were just 2 blocks from safety. The sunroof, Eliza said suddenly. Can you open it? Understanding her plan instantly, I hit the button. The sunroof slid open as the men approached our car. Eliza stood, thrusting her upper body through the opening, waving her arms wildly. Help! She screamed at pedestrians on the sidewalk. FBI! We need to get to the FBI. They're trying to stop us. People turned to stare. Phones came out, recording the scene. The men hesitated, suddenly aware of the public attention. Keep going, I encouraged her, reaching for my phone. I'm calling 911, but before I could dial, a police cruiser turned the corner, lights flashing. It had been patrolling nearby and spotted the commotion. The men retreated to their vehicles as the police officer approached. I rolled down my window. Officer, we have evidence of major financial fraud, I said quickly. We need police escort to the FBI office right away. Those men are trying to stop us from delivering evidence. The officer looked skeptical but radioed for backup when Eliza showed him the drive and explained the situation. Within minutes, 2 more cruisers arrived, and we were escorted the final blocks to the federal building. Inside, we were directed to a waiting area, while agents were summoned. The adrenaline that had carried me through the chase began to fade, leaving me shaky and exhausted. Eliza looked no better, her face ashen from the exertion that her still-recovering body wasn't prepared for. What if they don't believe us? She whispered, doubt creeping into her voice. What if Gina has connections here too? It was a possibility I hadn't considered. How far did Gina's influence reach? Could she have federal agents in her pocket as well? After 30 minutes, that felt like hours. A serious-faced woman in a tailored suit approached us. I'm Special Agent Teresa Morgan, she introduced herself. I understand you have information regarding financial crimes. We followed her to a small conference room where we laid out everything: the identity theft, the pension fund embezzlement, the Novatech acquisition irregularities, and Gina Wright's connections to all of it. Agent Morgan listened without expression, occasionally making notes or asking clarifying questions. When we finished, she collected the drive and our written statements. We'll need to verify this information, she said neutrally. In the meantime, we can arrange protective custody if you feel your safety is threatened. Does that mean you believe us? Eliza asked. It means we take allegations of this nature seriously, Agent Morgan replied, especially when they involve pension fraud. But verification takes time. We don't have time, I argued. Every minute gives them opportunity to destroy evidence and cover their tracks. I understand your concern, Ms. Blake, but we have procedures. The CEO and board are meeting right now, I interrupted. If they realize what we have, they'll start damage control immediately. Agent Morgan studied me for a long moment, then sighed. Wait here. She left us alone in the conference room. Through the glass wall, I could see her speaking urgently with several other agents, gesturing toward the drive in her hand. What do you think? Eliza asked, her voice low. I think bureaucracy moves slowly, even when millions of dollars and criminal conspiracies are involved, I replied grimly. Another hour passed. Agent Morgan returned briefly to tell us they were making progress, but needed more time. My hope began to waver. What if the evidence wasn't enough? What if Gina had already covered her tracks too well? My phone buzzed with a text from Paige. Just got your email with the files. This is explosive stuff. You okay? At least the evidence existed in multiple places now. Even if the FBI moved too slowly, we had backup copies. Just before noon, Agent Morgan returned with her supervisor, a stern-looking man who introduced himself as Assistant Director Hayes. We've reviewed your evidence and initiated contact with the Securities and Exchange Commission, Hayes informed us. A joint task force is being assembled to investigate these allegations. In the meantime, we'd like to move you both to a secure location. Relief washed through me. So, you're taking action? We are, Hayes confirmed. But Ms. Wright has powerful connections. This investigation needs to be handled carefully to ensure charges stick. As we were escorted to a government SUV, my phone rang. Warren's name flashed on the screen. I showed it to Agent Morgan, who nodded for me to answer but put it on speaker. Audrey, Warren's voice was tightly controlled. Where are you? Somewhere safe, I replied, with people very interested in Novatech's financials. A pause. Whatever you think you know, I know enough, Warren. The question is, how much did you know? Were you part of it, or just another pawn? Another pause. Longer this time. The board is prepared to offer you full reinstatement with a substantial compensation package for the misunderstanding, if you'll discuss this matter internally first. Agent Morgan raised an eyebrow at the obvious attempt at bribery. Too late, I said. The FBI has everything. The line went dead. Within hours, news of federal agents at company headquarters spread through financial circles. By evening, it was breaking news. Major financial firm under investigation for fraud. Board member and executives implicated. We watched from a safe house as Gina Wright's name hit the headlines. Photographs showed her leaving the federal building after questioning. Her normally perfect composure cracked, refusing to comment to reporters shouting questions. But my sense of victory was premature. 3 days later, Agent Morgan visited with troubling news. We've hit some roadblocks, she admitted. Key documents have disappeared from company servers. Witnesses are suddenly changing their stories. And Ms. Wright's attorneys are filing motions to suppress evidence, claiming it was obtained illegally. That's ridiculous, I protested. We accessed company systems using legitimate credentials. Yes, but Ms. Turner's access should have been terminated during her leave. They're arguing she no longer had authorization, making it computer trespass. My stomach sank. So they're going to get away with it? I didn't say that, Agent Morgan corrected. But the case is becoming more challenging. We need more evidence, particularly connecting Gina directly to the transfers. Evidence we didn't have. The drive contained damning information, but nothing with Gina's literal fingerprints on it. Everything had been carefully routed through intermediaries or falsified under my credentials. The investigation continued for weeks. Eliza and I remained in protective custody, watching helplessly as the case seemed to weaken. Gina's legal team filed motion after motion, delaying proceedings and challenging evidence. Meanwhile, Warren announced an internal review, positioning himself as shocked by the alleged irregularities. The company's stock took a hit but stabilized as Warren assured investors that any issues were isolated and being addressed. They're going to sacrifice some lower-level executives and protect themselves, I predicted bitterly after reading Warren's public statement. Classic damage control. Eliza, who had been unusually quiet all morning, finally spoke up. Unless we change the game. I looked at her questioningly. We've been playing defense, she explained, reacting to their moves, trying to prove what they did. But we haven't leveraged our strongest asset, which is, they think we're predictable. A slow smile spread across Eliza's face. What they don't realize is how much I learned about them while recovering in Switzerland. She pulled out a notebook I hadn't seen before. 3 years of medical leave gives you a lot of time to think, and research, and plan. As Eliza outlined her ideas, I realized we'd been approaching this all wrong. We'd been trying to win in a system where Gina had already rigged the rules. We needed to create our own playing field. It's risky, I cautioned when she finished. More risky than letting them destroy our lives? Eliza challenged. They poisoned me, Audrey. They stole years I can never get back. And they would have let you take the fall for their crimes without hesitation. She was right. Playing by the rules hadn't worked. It was time for a different approach. We spent the next 2 days finalizing our plan, then approached Agent Morgan with a proposal. She was skeptical but intrigued. It's unorthodox, she admitted. But if it works. 1 week later, I sat across from Warren in a small conference room at the federal building. He'd agreed to meet after I suggested I might have information beneficial to his position. I appreciate you seeing me, I began, keeping my voice neutral. This situation has been difficult for everyone. Warren nodded cautiously. The company has suffered unnecessary damage from these allegations. If there's a way to resolve this expeditiously, that's why I wanted to meet. I believe there's a solution that would benefit both of us. I slid a folder across the table. Inside was a draft press release announcing my resignation, accepting full responsibility for oversight failures while maintaining my innocence regarding direct involvement in any fraudulent activities. Warren read it quickly, his expression calculating. This is constructive. What are you looking for in return? A generous settlement package, naturally, and your support in quashing any potential criminal charges against me. That might be arrangeable, Warren said slowly. But what about the evidence you provided to the FBI? I leaned forward. Between us, it's not as conclusive as they initially thought. Without my testimony to contextualize it, much of it becomes circumstantial. A gleam of hope appeared in Warren's eyes. And Miss Turner? Her health has deteriorated again. She's considering returning to Switzerland for treatment. Warren didn't bother hiding his relief. I believe we can work something out then. Let me discuss terms with the board. There's one more thing, I added. I have copies of all evidence in secure locations. Insurance, you understand. I'd need guarantees. Of course, Warren agreed quickly. We can draft appropriate non-disclosure agreements. As he left to make calls, Agent Morgan entered from a side door where she'd been listening. He took the bait, she confirmed. Now we wait. 2 days later, Warren requested another meeting, this time at the company headquarters, with Gina Wright present. Perfect. I arrived for the meeting wearing a concealed recording device provided by the FBI. The plan was simple: get them to implicate themselves while believing they were negotiating my silence. Gina Wright sat beside Warren in the conference room, immaculately dressed as always, betraying no hint of concern. Miss Blake, she greeted me coolly. I understand you're taking a reasonable approach to resolving this unfortunate situation. I'm being practical, I replied. This continued battle doesn't benefit anyone. Warren nodded approvingly. We've prepared a generous package. 7 figures, plus healthcare for life, in exchange for your resignation and cooperation in helping us. Clarify certain misunderstandings with the authorities. You mean withdraw my allegations against Gina? Warren winced at my bluntness, but Gina merely smiled. Let's be direct, she said. You made a serious miscalculation, Audrey, but you're smart enough to recognize when to cut your losses. Unlike Cassandra? I asked innocently. I noticed she's disappeared. A flash of something, anger, fear, crossed Gina's face before she controlled it. My daughter has nothing to do with this. Your daughter who impersonated my assistant for 3 years? Who helped poison the real Eliza Turner? That daughter? Warren shifted uncomfortably. These accusations aren't helpful. They're not accusations, I interrupted. They're facts. Facts I'm willing to keep private in exchange for appropriate compensation. Gina studied me, her expression calculating. What exactly are you proposing? Double your offer, plus a board seat at one of your subsidiary companies. That's not possible, Warren began, but Gina held up a hand to silence him. Ambitious, she noted, but perhaps we can accommodate something similar, assuming all evidence disappears completely. I've already told Agent Morgan I've had second thoughts, I assured her. Without my testimony, their case weakens considerably. Gina leaned forward. And what about the real Ms. Turner? As I told Warren, her health has deteriorated. She won't be a problem. A satisfied smile spread across Gina's face. I knew you were pragmatic, Audrey. Unlike some people, you understand how the world actually works. I've learned a lot recently, I agreed, especially about the Novatech acquisition. Quite clever how you structured those offshore transfers. Gina's smile didn't waver, but her eyes hardened. Careful. Speculation without evidence is still defamation. It's not speculation when you have the transaction logs showing your digital signature, I replied calmly. Or the recordings of your meetings with the Cayman Islands Investment Group. Warren paled. What recordings? I smiled. Insurance policy. Like I said, I've learned a lot. Gina's composure finally cracked. You're bluffing. There are no recordings. No? Then you never met with Julian Mercer at the Grand Hotel last October. Never discussed how to structure the pension fund diversions through the Novatech acquisition. The blood drained from Gina's face. I continued. You never instructed Cassandra to adjust my quarterly reports to hide the discrepancies? Never authorized the poisoning of Eliza Turner to create a vacancy for your daughter? This meeting is over, Gina snapped, standing abruptly. Is it? I thought we were negotiating my silence. Warren looked between us, confusion evident on his face. Gina, what is she talking about? What recordings? Gina ignored him, focusing entirely on me. Whatever you think you have. I don't think. I know. I stood, matching her posture. And so does Julian Mercer. Her eyes widened at the name. What? Your mistake was using the same intermediary for multiple transactions. Julian got nervous when the FBI started asking questions. He's been cooperating for weeks. It was a bluff. We had no such cooperation. But Gina couldn't know that. Warren, she said sharply, give us the room. Warren hesitated, then complied, closing the door behind him. Once alone, Gina's demeanor changed completely. Name your actual price. It's not about money anymore. It's always about money, she scoffed. Everyone has a number. I shook my head. You destroyed my career. You nearly killed an innocent woman. You embezzled millions from people's retirement funds. Did you really think I'd just take a payoff? Understanding dawned in her eyes. This is a setup. The real question, I continued, ignoring her realization, is whether Cassandra was following your orders the whole time, or if poisoning Eliza was her own initiative. The FBI is particularly interested in that detail. Gina's mask dropped completely. You stupid, naive woman. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Cassandra did what was necessary, what I taught her to do. In this world, you take what you want or you get nothing. Thank you for clarifying that, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I'm sure the federal agents listening right now appreciated the confirmation. The door opened. Agent Morgan entered, followed by 3 other agents. Gina Wright, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, embezzlement of pension funds, and attempted murder, Morgan announced. Everything you've said in the past 15 minutes has been recorded with a federal warrant. As they led a stunned Gina away, Warren was brought back in, now pale and shaking. I had no idea about the poisoning, he insisted, or Cassandra's true identity. You have to believe me. Save it for your deposition, Agent Morgan told him. We'll be investigating everyone involved. Within hours, arrest warrants were issued for Cassandra Wright and 3 other executives. Federal agents seized computers and records throughout the company. The pension fraud investigation expanded to include attempted murder charges related to Eliza's poisoning. 1 month later, I sat with Eliza in a small cafe, watching news coverage of Gina and Cassandra Wright entering the federal courthouse for their arraignment. They're facing 30 years, Eliza noted, stirring her tea. Minimum. More when the additional charges from the SEC investigation come through, I added. The company had installed new leadership and was cooperating fully with authorities. My name had been cleared, with a public apology and reinstatement offer, tighter election which I'd declined. Instead, I'd accepted a position with the Regulatory Commission, helping identify similar fraud schemes at other companies. Eliza had established a foundation to help victims of financial crimes, funded by the substantial settlement she'd received. Her health was improving gradually. It wasn't just about justice, was it? Eliza asked suddenly. It was about making them face exactly what they did, in front of everyone. I nodded. The cruelest punishment for people like Gina and Cassandra isn't prison. It's exposure. Having everyone see who they really are. The perfect revenge, Eliza agreed, using their own methods against them. With one key difference, I pointed out. We did it legally. We clinked our teacups in a quiet toast to our victory, not just over Gina and Cassandra, but over the system they'd tried to corrupt. The truth had prevailed, not because we played by their rules, but because we were smarter, more patient, and ultimately, more committed to justice than they were to greed. If this story of justice and revenge resonated with you, make sure to hit like and subscribe for more incredible true stories of people who fought back against those who wronged them. Have you ever uncovered a betrayal that changed everything? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might help someone else find the courage to stand up for themselves, too.